Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of the king of gaslighting to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the Ad Hominem Circumstantial, also known as appeal to motive and the vested interests fallacy.
So all the way back in episode 21, we did the ad hominem abusive fallacy, which is where you basically call your opponent names, which Trump is good at. But then you make out that because they are an idiot or whatever, their argument must be wrong. So this is another ad hominem, but it's not the same exactly. We're 21 episodes on, so it looks like every 21 episodes we have to do an ad hominem type thing.
Yeah.
But this is about the circumstance that the person is in, i.e. what their motivation is really for making their argument. It's impugning someone's motives, and in doing that, avoiding addressing the argument itself at all.
So you're not dismissing them on the basis that they're an idiot, but you're dismissing them on the basis of their motives for saying
that they're a Democrat, or that they hold particular views, or that they are part of a particular group. There's some crossover there with the genetic fallacy. Where those ideas are coming from is the problem rather than the idea themselves. Yeah. So Trump does this a lot, with many of the things we talk about. Actually, probably more than the ad hominem abusive, because when he does call people names, mostly it's just for the sake of calling them names. It's not as part of an argument. Whereas he does use this to avoid addressing arguments. Yeah. We're recording this on the 28th, and yesterday, 27th, Trump addressed the revelations about John Bolton's book and his accusation in the book that Trump did indeed tie the aid that he was withholding from Ukraine to the investigations into Biden and Burisma. And Trump tweeted, "I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his very public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book." There you go. There it is. Yeah. He's saying it's not true. He's only saying it because he wants to sell his book. Yeah. Now, the thing about the ad hominem circumstantial is it can be completely true what you're saying, that the motives of someone are the reason that they're saying the thing. Yeah. And that doesn't matter because it doesn't address the argument. The point is, yes, John Bolton might be saying this to sell a book. In fact, it's incredibly likely that with the timing that this has come out, that he thinks this is really, really great publicity. Yeah. It doesn't make it a lie. It doesn't mean it's not true, what he's saying. Yeah. And it's not an argument against it. It's not trying to refute the merits of the argument. It's not. I mean, he is saying it didn't happen in this case, but he's not kind of offering any real other argument other than the only reason he's saying it is because he wants to sell a book.
Because it's been a good 50 years since he last appeared in the Lorax, so he's probably, he's just kind of going, "Oh, I'll never get this chance again." So it may well be true that he's actually doing it to sell the book, but it doesn't mean that the contents are any less true. It's, you kind of go, well, the timing is a little bit suspicious, but it doesn't make what he's saying suspicious just because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just as we said with the ad hominem abusive fallacy and with the genetic fallacy, it is completely reasonable to consider the source of what is being said. And if those people do have an ulterior motive, it's reasonable to factor that into your decision of whether to believe them or not. But essentially reflexively arguing that the only reason they're saying it is because they have a vested interest is not a good argument.
No. And you can kind of tell that because it just comes out of Trump's mouth. It's not going to be a good argument. That's probably a fallacy. That's probably an ad hominem in itself, isn't it?
So our second Trump example is back, not that long ago, but talking about the wall.
The Democrats would give me anything, any money, doesn't matter, billions and billions for anything except the wall. Even though 5 years ago they all wanted the wall. The only reason they didn't want the wall is because I wanted it.
So he's saying the only reason the Democrats don't want the wall is because Trump wants it. So he's ignoring all of the arguments against the wall.
Yeah.
And just saying, well, there is obviously no other argument. There's no good reason not to want the wall.
Yeah.
He claims that they wanted it 5 years ago. That's just a lie. What he's referring to there is a failed bill that pretty much all Senate Democrats signed on to, which was addressing immigration with a 700-foot fence, metal fence, along part of the border.
Yeah.
But the point of that bill was they were agreeing to the fence in return to a system which offered a route to citizenship for immigrants currently in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't get through because the Republicans voted against it.
Weirdly, because they were suspicious in an ad hominem circumstantial kind of way that they're only voting for the fence because they want the DACA thing to go through.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can exactly counter Trump's claim that the Democrats wanted the wall 5 years ago by saying, well, the Republicans didn't want it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was an immigration reform bill that was put forward actually as a bipartisan effort by the Gang of Eight, the four on each side. But a big part of it was the route to citizenship. And it also wasn't a wall. It was a fence. It wasn't what Trump was trying to say. It wasn't from sea to shining sea. It was 700 miles of fencing, which was a slight enlargement of what was already there, because a lot of the fencing would have just been repairing the fencing that they currently had. We can't say that is their motivation, that they don't want the wall because Trump wants the wall, because they have given a lot of reasons why they don't want the wall. The fact that it's ineffective, unnecessary, extremely expensive, all of the other points that people have made against the wall. And
actually, it's kind of an echo of Trump saying, "Well, I don't want health care because Obama wanted it." Actually, that's a true. That's not an ad hominem circumstantial. That is mostly true. That the things that he wants to get rid of are because Obama wanted it. In a sort of ironic flip side of the coin.
Yeah, it's arguably true. Yeah. So, but as I said, the fact it's true doesn't make his arguments bad, but they are bad for other reasons.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. And the thing is, if in the course of arguing against his attempt at repealing Obamacare, you are able to make those other arguments, and you don't just rely on it and saying, you only want to get rid of Obamacare because Obama signed it, or you only want to renege on the Iran deal because Obama signed it, or you only want to pull out of the Paris Accord because Obama did that, or the many other examples we could give. Because we can point to other things, we can argue other reasons why they're good, and he can't argue other reasons why they're bad in many cases, and doesn't really try that hard. No. It does come back to that seems to be the reason.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Yeah. So our final Trump example actually is kind of it's Trump adjacent. It's Mark Short, who's Mike Pence's chief of staff.
Right.
And this was why I chose to do Ad Hominem Circumstantial this week, because of Lev Parnas and his recent kind of document dump of all of the allegations that he's made on the Rachel Maddow's show, and the receipts that he's brought, the documentary evidence.
Yep.
Republicans generally are responding to this by impugning Parnas's motives. And yes, it probably is true that the reason he's saying all of this stuff is because he hopes to get a shorter sentence for the crimes that he's been indicted on. Yep. But that doesn't mean the things he's saying aren't true. And Mark Short said, "This is very simple. Lev Parnas is under a multi-count indictment and will say anything to anybody who will listen in hopes of staying out of prison. It's no surprise that only the liberal media is listening to him." Yeah, it is no surprise that only the liberal media are listening to him, because Fox obviously aren't going to listen to anyone who has anything negative to say about the president.
Yeah.
But Yes, Parnas is under a multi-count indictment. He is saying these things and providing these documents in the hopes that it will reduce his sentence. That's almost certain. He has very little other reason to do it, apart from, as I suggested the other week, that he's kind of upset that Trump keeps saying he doesn't know who he is. But the documents tend to back up what he says. What he's producing is evidence, he's not just saying stuff without anything to back it up.
He's not made it up. He's not like written it down like it's a transcript of a phone conversation in his own handwriting and gone, there you are, see, there's the evidence. No, somebody else has done it already. But there's sort of two ad hominem circumstantials in there. There's one because he's only saying it because he wants to stay out of prison, and there's almost the implication that only the liberal media are listening to him, so you ought to dismiss it because only the liberal media are listening to it. This is the kind of fodder of the liberal media, and it's like the phrase in England during the last election was you're part of the metropolitan liberal elite. Yeah,
and it's essentially an ad hominem against the media as well, the media who are listening to him, saying that they're only listening to him because they're liberal, essentially. With that kind of liberal elite thing, it is putting people in a particular group and then saying you only hold the views you hold because you're in that group, not because they are reasonable views to hold or because you can back them up or any of the logical arguments that you might give. They're saying that, of course you think that, you would think that, you're a liberal. It quickly and easily dismisses any argument that you can make.
Exactly. Yeah, the phrase that came to mind then, it dismisses it out of hand. Yeah. And it sounds like a convincing thing. It sounds, it's like saying, well, you can't believe a word he says because he's been a murderer. Yeah. It's the I'm watching the latest series of the kind of Scandinavian noir called Wisting. It's probably Visting. And there's a guy who was convicted of murder, had been in jail 17 years for a murder he possibly didn't commit. And he himself says, the trouble is, even if I'm found that I didn't do it, I'm still tainted with it because I've been in jail for 17 years. So people will say, well, you can't trust him because he's been in jail for 17 years. Well, he's a criminal, sir. So yes, yes, you arrested him. That's just,
and it's an incredibly easy trap to fall into, and I'm sure that I do it, and listeners do it all the time. It's I can definitely imagine situations where I would think, well, the only reason that Republican senators are saying that is because they're afraid of what Trump might say if they talk negatively about him. Yeah, I definitely think that, and again, it could be true. It may well be true, but it isn't an excuse to dismiss what they're saying. There are many other ways to dismiss what they're saying often, and that isn't it's not an unreasonable thing to think in many cases that the people have vested interests or ulterior motives for saying the things they say or doing the things they do. That's kind of how humans work. We do things because we have a reason to do them, and that sometimes benefits us or people we like. Yeah. So that fact doesn't give you an opportunity or a good reason to dismiss what people are saying or doing.
And actually, and it's also a shortcut for not having to think about it. If you're presented with evidence which is quite compelling, your initial reaction is to dismiss it, and in that famous phrase, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? It's that kind of that it just dismisses it without engaging with the content of the evidence that's been placed in front of you. So to counter it, you just go back and say, well, yeah, but what you've just done is it's fair enough, you saying that, but you haven't answered the question, or you haven't addressed the accusation, or you haven't looked at the evidence that's been presented. You're just filling in the gap and dismissing me out of hand.
Yeah. Essentially, it's true but irrelevant.
There you go, yeah.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British politics corner.
Well, it wouldn't be Britpol Corner, Politics Corner without good old Boris. So our first example is from the election campaign, when at the very start of the election campaign, the one that he called, it felt gloriously that it was all going to fall to pieces because there were various gaffes that he just walked into. And one of them was he went to visit an NHS hospital in order to prove how much the Tories love the NHS and how much they're actually going to... well, actually, I suspect the NHS are waiting with bated breath because we're only 4 days away, 23 days away from leaving the EU, and therefore the £350 million a week that we pay to the EU will go to the NHS. I guess they can't wait. So this is a clip from the visit that he made to a hospital, and he was confronted by a dad whose daughter was ill, and he stood in the corridor and said this.
There are not enough people on this ward. There are not enough doctors. There are not enough nurses. Right. The NHS has been destroyed. Right. It's been destroyed. It's been destroyed. And now you come here for a press opportunity.
Well, actually, there's no press here.
What do you mean there's no press here? Who are these people?
So basically the guy has said, you know, the NHS is falling to pieces. Basically, you've been in charge of it for the last 10 years. It's fallen apart. And all you've done now is turn up because it's a press opportunity. And Boris, unbelievably, says, well, there are no press here. This is being filmed by 2 cameras because they cut from one to a close up to a long shot by ITV News. And you can hear the cameras going off because the microphones are on top of the film cameras, which is where all the zoom lenses for the stills cameras are, and you can hear them going off. He says there's no press here, and he says, and he points down the corridor, looks at the cameras and says, well, who are these people then? And so here comes the dismissal of that. So on Twitter, Alison Pearson, who her Twitter description calls her a Telegraph columnist. She isn't really a journalist, so she's a columnist. So she retweets something from another tweeter, G.A. Thompson, who in turn has mentioned Guido Fawkes, who's also on Twitter. So he says it took next to no time for @Guido Fawkes to expose the ambusher, the dad we just heard, as a Corbynista Labour troll and former Emily Thornberry staffer. Emily Thornberry's a Labour MP. He's at Omar Salem. That's his name, Omar Salem. It was a setup. Pictures show him wearing a partly concealed microphone. And Alison Pearson says, this is shocking, wearing a microphone. Put your sick daughter before scoring political points. And it's completely untrue. He wasn't wearing a microphone, but it's just this instant dismissal to say you can't listen to a word he says, you can't believe what he says because he used to work for a Labour MP. So he's got motives, left-wing socialist motives.
Also, weirdly, she's accepting that his daughter was sick. She's not claiming that he was, pretending to have a sick daughter in this hospital so that he could ambush Boris.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of odd.
Very odd. And so they're dismissing it and saying it's a setup, when actually that's exactly what the dad has done. So maybe he's just said it's a setup. The guy who's Guido Fawkes is saying he had a partly concealed microphone. Well, it was completely concealed because it didn't exist, so nobody could see it.
Definitely a lot better concealed than the cameras that were filming.
Exactly, at the other end of the corridor, some 10 feet away. There's that utter setup. So, okay. So, Britpol example 2 is way back in the heady days of the Cameron-Clegg coalition. In April 2013, I was seeking all over the internet to try and find an example of the Champagne Socialist quote, which it turns out, have wrongly attributed to Clement Attlee, the a post-war Labour leader who ushered in the invention of the NHS. He, I think, on an episode some 10 episodes ago, I said he was once accused of being a champagne socialist. He said, how can you drink champagne and be a socialist? And he said in reply, I think everybody should have champagne. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm a champagne socialist. And actually, it apparently is attributed to John Mortimer, the author and playwright. Ah. So, who used to get up at 6 a.m. before he wrote, he had a glass of champagne. and when asked, how can you be a socialist and drink champagne? He said, well, I think everybody should drink champagne. Certainly a bit wittier than Clement Attlee was ever. So this is a modern version of the champagne socialist trope. So in April 2013, Ian Murray MP, who's a Scottish Labour Party MP, asked David Cameron, the leader of the coalition, whether he would benefit from the tax cuts for the rich that the coalition government had just introduced. Cameron says this.
Mr. Ian Murray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister benefit personally from the millionaires' tax cut?
Let me say to the honourable gentleman, I will pay all of the taxes that I'm meant to. But let me just point out one small point. I had a letter this week. I thought people might enjoy. It's from Ed, who lives in Camden. And it says this. I am a millionaire. I live in a house worth £2 million, which I got through a combination of inheritance and property speculation. I'm worried that if I sell my house and I buy another one, I'll have to pay the 7% stamp duty that the wicked Tories have introduced. Under Labour, well, we talked about fairness. We never made the rich pay more. What should a champagne socialist like me do?
Well, I think he made up that letter.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, because who would he be writing it to? Yeah, and call it... Who's he writing it to and saying the wicked Tories? Yeah, it must... Socialist worker or something? Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. So there is Cameron in a very elaborate way dismissing Ian Murray's question by kind of implying, how can you hold me to task about the tax cuts when your party leader is a champagne socialist? As if you can't. That's the trope that the Tories use in their one nation, we're in it for the people and we are for the many, not the few. That kind of attitude. They dismiss socialists who have shoes and cars and houses and all that kind of stuff. But he misses. He doesn't answer the question. He neatly answered it right at the beginning, actually, and says, "I will pay all the tax that I need to."
Yeah, under my new tax
rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as it turns out, as we discovered from the Panama Papers, he didn't pay all that either. So he does, and then he dismisses the question and even the grounds for posing that. How dare you ask me this when your leader has a house? It dismisses anybody that tries to uphold the rights of workers and the people by saying, well, you live in a house. Lots of the people that you support don't have those things. Well, I know. That's why I'm fighting to get them to have them. So, and this occurred in the same week, actually, that Boris this year wants tax cuts for the rich, funnily enough, because they're the people that support his party. However, there are, I did read an article that actor and screenwriter Simon Pegg, who's also a socialist, signed an open letter which asked millionaires and billionaires to join calls for higher taxes. 120 people from 8 countries, including Richard Curtis, who film director, signed the letter, which is basically, and Pegg says, at first glance, it seems antithetical, an antithetical move from people lucky enough to have high-paying jobs. So it is possible to be a champagne socialist. And what Cameron is kind of implying is that you as champagne socialists should pay taxes as well. And here are 120 people who are all saying, we would like to pay more tax, please. Don't give us any tax cuts. We would like to pay more tax in order to have a better standard of living for everybody. So it kind of flies in the face for that. There we go, the Beatles there with Paul McCartney singing Fool on the Hill.
On the Hill, yeah.
Which has the line, he doesn't listen to them, he knows that they're the fools. Which I think could be an ad hominem circumstantial.
Yeah, or possibly just regular ad hominem abusive.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to listen to you because you're an idiot, is basically what he's saying.
Yeah. So, in the Fallacy in the Wild, we like to talk about the Fallacy of the Week from a non-political perspective, and our first example this week is from Futurama. Yep. This is an episode where Leela has had some plastic surgery, and the plastic surgeon who has given her 2 eyes, because she was a Cyclops before, has kind of asked her out, and because now she's attractive because she's got 2 eyes, and she accepts.
This is so unfair. I liked you back when you were a Cyclops. The guy's only interested now that you have 2 eyes.
You're just jealous.
No, I'm not. Oh, wait, I am. But my point remains valid.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Perfectly.
So Fry totally points out, he is jealous, but that's irrelevant. His point is still fair. So, and it's a fair point. He's making the point that the surgeon only likes her because she has 2 eyes, and that is played out in the rest of the episode. He is only nice to her because now she's okay. Before she was weird, and Fry feels aggrieved by that because he liked her before. Yeah. Fair enough.
And Andy accepts it. And I love that when he goes, no, I'm not. Oh, no, wait, I am. But then in a very clever dismissal, counter of her accusation, says, yeah, but my point is still valid.
Absolutely.
And it is. Yeah.
And that's the way to counter this, essentially, is if it is true, what someone's saying about you, if you are motivated by some particular purpose, and they're saying, well, that's the only reason you're saying this, and we say, I am motivated by that, but it doesn't make my point not true. So
there you go. Yeah, perfect.
Our second example comes from Ali G, and this is not his original series, but a series called Ali G Resurrection, which he did in, I think, 2014. And Ali here is talking to a Harvard professor of zoology.
What is the point of animals, Professor?
What do you mean by the point? They exist. They're here.
But ain't most of them, with the exceptions of monkeys and scorpions, with all respect to you, a bit crap?
I think they're probably pretty important.
Yeah, but you would say that because your job is on the line.
Yeah, so it's true that if animals are seen as a bit crap,
with the exception of
monkeys and scorpions, then there'd be less need for zoology professors. But it doesn't refute the point that animals are important.
Yes. So. Actually, that approach, it reminded me of there's another character called Philomena Kunk.
Oh yeah.
On Charlie Brooker's
series,
show, and she kind of asks those questions, those very similar kinds of questions of highly skilled people, and it's quite interesting that there are still people that don't know who Ali G is.
Yeah,
I was thinking the other day about his This Is America series. Which was just phenomenal, which we've quoted before. I think,
absolutely. Yeah, if you haven't heard of or seen Ali G, it's the basically the first character that Sacha Baron Cohen did before he did This Is America, and before he did kind of Borat and all of those. So it's the one that made him famous in the UK.
And I guess it's he's had to kind of change characters in order to do pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
He's kind of doing that confrontational comedy where people get caught out by what he's said, but because his character's become so well known, he has to invent another one. And what's amazing is that people can't see through the next character. He's actually a really very good actor.
Yeah. And when you hear that formulation of, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Or what was the Profumo thing? Well, he would say that, wouldn't he?
It was Christine Keeler. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you think that, because that's kind of a flag to suggest that someone's using an ad hominem circumstantial.
So we're gonna play
Fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game.
I understand the game as well as anybody. As well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
The only reason that you think I'm not going to win this time is because you're a man of very little faith.
That is true. I am a man of very little faith. That is accurate, but it doesn't refute my point.
And it doesn't lead you to think that you're not going to lose. Yeah, because I'm just going to appeal to A, numbers, and B, antiquity, that I've not scored anything remotely reasonable in the past. Yeah.
So
there we go. Righto.
So
it's all going to be different this week.
I'm using, actually, as I mentioned last week, the batshit rally that Trump gave in Milwaukee, and I'm just doing it again. There's more from that.
More,
because there was a lot.
Yeah.
So again, these are kind of free of other context, essentially.
Right.
And you just have to kind of take them at face value. So, statement number 1. Somebody said to me recently, President, it was a friend of mine. He used to always call me Donald. Hey, Donald, how are you doing? Let's go out. Okay, good. Now he calls me President. I tell you this, they always call me President. President, tell me what's happening. What's going on? How's it all going? You're doing such a great job. I said, do me a favour, call me Donald. I can't.
It almost sounds like a song lyric, doesn't it? What?
Statement number 2.
Yeah.
We will protect patients with pre-existing conditions like nobody else, and we will protect your pre-existing physicians, which you've had to get rid of, which you will have to get rid of when this new plan never happens. That, don't worry, is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't worry about it. It sounds nice. It doesn't even sound good, frankly.
What? What's a pre-existing physician? That's just things rhyme in his head, and he has to say them.
Statement number 3.
No, wait. It sounds nice. It doesn't even sound. Okay, all right.
Statement number 3 is talking about withdrawing from Syria.
Right.
He says, I call it the danger zone, but really it is the danger zone. And they've been fighting for hundreds of years, so I don't know why people call it the safe zone. It's the most dangerous zone in the world. And when I looked at our warfighters who were there, the generals said to me, sir, they have to be there no matter what, sir. And I said, let them fight, but we're getting the hell out. The fake news media doesn't tell you that.
Okay. Why is it called that? It's just really bad stand-up, isn't it? It's that. Why is it called the safe zone? It's really dangerous. Why don't they call it the danger zone?
Yeah. Have you heard this? Have you seen this? The safe zone?
Yeah. Oh, man. And they've been fighting for hundreds of years. Who's they? Yeah. The Air Force has been fighting with jets for hundreds of years. Sir, they have to be there. Okay. No matter, sir. Nobody calls him sir. Just like nobody calls him president. Okay, I'm going to apply my where would the crowd cheer, and why? Okay, so on that, worryingly, I think the pre-existing conditions and the rhyme that occurred to him, pre-existing physicians, is something that you couldn't have anticipated and written. So I think that one's probably true. Somebody said to me recently, President, he was a friend of mine. He always used to call me Donald. I thought, nobody's going to fucking call him President, are they? They always call me President. Tell me what's happening. What's going on? You're doing such a great job. Okay, hundreds of years, safe zone, dangerous. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Well, it's a toss-up between 1 and 3 at the moment for me. The danger zone, safe zone sounds like a crowd-pleasing gag. Okay, so I think, all right then. So I think number 1 is the one you made up.
Okay, so you're fairly confident about number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so number 2 is real.
We will protect patients with pre-existing conditions like nobody else, and we will protect your pre-existing physicians, which you've had to get rid of, which you will have to get rid of when this new plan never happens. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't worry about it. Sounds nice. It doesn't even sound good, frankly.
What?
Yeah. You've had to get rid of your pre-existing physicians. You will have to get rid of them when this new plan never happens.
Never happens. Don't worry, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't worry about it. Sounds nice, but it doesn't even
sound good.
Frankly. What the hell is that? But you could hear him discover that pre-existing physicians. Oh, I've just realised. And then I'm just going to run off at the mouth. He just opens his mouth and stuff comes out. It doesn't make any sense at all. No. And that's the true one. Oh, my God.
So you also thought number 3 is true? Number 3
the sirs,
is fake news.
Oh, good work. No. Oh, my God, no. So that means the one with a million president. No.
Yeah.
No.
Number 1 is real.
Good work on 3.
Somebody said to me recently, President was a friend of mine. Used to always call me Donald. Hey, Donald, how you doing? Let's go have dinner. Okay, good. Now he calls me President. I told you this before. He calls me President. They always call me President. President. Tell me, what's happening? What's going on? How's it all going? You're doing such a great job. I said, do me a favor, call me Donald. I can't.
What the hell's that for?
Again, no context. There was no. This was totally out of the blue. He was talking about something else before he started on this.
Yeah, and then something else afterwards.
And
no,
it doesn't. There's no sense to it. And almost, I mean, the protocol is to call him Mr. President.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, you don't just say President.
Yeah. No.
That's totally
President.
random. Yeah. It's not his name.
No. And actually, now because I'm looking at it, there are 5 of them in that, 6 of them in that thing. And the more you look at the word president, the more stupid it looks. It's nuts, isn't it? It's like I'm just thinking of Funkadelic and Parliament and those kind of. It's like if he was in a big glam 70s funk band, he would be called President. Not Mr. President, just President. Somebody said President. It was a friend of mine. Who? Why are you telling us this? And then there's that one bit, you're doing such a great job. Nobody's ever said that to him. And what? Somebody's taking the piss out of you, Donald. That's what they're going. They're coming up and they're going, President. You're the president, in a kind of Cartman kind of way.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's just so cute that he thinks he has friends. I mean...
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. In the way that Cartman thinks that people like him. Yeah. Hey, wait. You must really like him. You're calling me president. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that means that you didn't.
Oh no! Good gag. Good
week.
Gag on the safe zone, dangerous zone. Good work.
Yeah. Weirdly, I totally turned that on his head because I again could have used this as a real one, but he started with "I call it the safe zone," and then explained how dangerous it was, and then reiterated that he calls it the safe zone. And then went off on something else. But a lot of the stuff in there I just made up, but the safe zone, danger zone thing, it's weird.
Yeah.
Basically, he was using that as a way to take credit for the fact that he moved the soldiers away from where the fighting is to where the oil is, to protect the oil.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Apart from it's a war crime, but we'll gloss over that. Yeah. Nice use of the word war fighters. Really good.
He's been saying that. I don't know.
No, really.
I don't know why he doesn't just say soldiers, but he's heard that word and thought, war fighters. I'm using that now.
Instead of I don't know what
soldiers,
fighters?
Just soldiers.
People that fight wars, war fighters. He's seen a Marvel comic or something, hasn't he?
Uh-huh. So before we move on this week, it's time to announce the winner of our Fire Swamp competition that's been running for the last 6 months nearly. And the winner is Andrew Bimpson.
Yay! Nice one, Andrew. Well done for sticking with it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, Andrew didn't get the most points because I did, because I'm the best out of everyone.
Okay.
But due to some obscure rule, I'm not allowed to win.
No.
So,
I bet there's an ad hominem potential we can come up with there.
So Andrew's technically
you only won
the winner
because you're you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically the winner. You go. Give it with one hand, take it with the other. Yeah, you're the winner, but due to some strange technicality, like conflict of interest, I think is the thing. But in these Trump times, that doesn't even count. What kind of rule is that? Don't need to do that. So actually, Jim's won. Thanks, Andrew, for your interest. Jim's won it. He's keeping the prize.
Yeah. So we are putting together some prizes, and we will send them over to Andrew in the next couple of weeks. And the next Fire Swamp competition is coming up. So if you didn't get a chance to enter, if you're a recent listener and you weren't around when we started this one, the Fire Swamp is basically I've made a list of the top 50 members of the Trump administration, basically people who are political appointees, and we are tracking whether they resign or get fired over the course of the next few months. And if they get fired, you get points if you pick them. So what you can do is go to fallaciostrump.com/fireswamp. Thanks to Leslie McDonald from the Facebook group for that name. It was originally called Deadpool, and Fireswamp is a far better name. So go to fallaciostrump.com/fireswamp. Make your picks. You get to choose 10 people from the list. Send them to me by the 20th of February. And then from that point until the 20th of July, 5 months, we will track who resigns or gets fired. And people will get points. And whoever gets the most points will get prizes.
Yay.
The last rule is that you have to be a member of the Facebook group. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/fallacioustrump and join the group, that's where we kind of keep everyone up to date with how the scores are going and who's resigning and getting fired, and everyone knows in that group who the best players are and who's winning at any given point. So join the group, send me your picks, and take part in the game. It's time for the part of the show that this week, at least, is called The Senate Trial is Not a Logical Fallacy. Well, maybe a bit, because we are now in, as I said, we're recording on the 28th, which means that we have just had the final day of the Republican response, essentially. We had the House managers' opening arguments last week. And then on Saturday, and then Monday, and today, we've had Trump's team essentially making their arguments, and it's quite a contrast between the two groups. In that the House managers made arguments and presented evidence. So the first thing that happened was they kind of argued a lot about what the rules of the trial should be, and they did manage to get McConnell to agree, or the Senate generally, the Republicans to agree to give them more days to present their opening arguments, because initially the rules were that they would have 2 days and 24 hours over the 2 days. to do that, and they would be starting at 1 p.m. I don't know why they start at 1 p.m. every day. That's weird.
Because how are you going to get 24 hours over 2 days if you start at 1 p.m.?
Well, you go late into the night, and arguably that is what the Republicans were hoping, was that nobody would be watching for significant amounts of the trial.
Yeah. Except for Trump.
Yeah.
Sat watching it on 5 screens. Yeah.
But they did manage to get the concession of having a third day, so they split the 24 hours over 3 days. And the House managers used all of that time to make their case. Yep. They were not allowed to call witnesses yet. They haven't had that vote at the moment. But initially, an argument was that they would not be allowed to submit evidence that was presented in the House investigation. It wouldn't at least be automatic that would come through. And in their initial arguments, they came to the conclusion that actually that was allowed, because before it was going to be essentially a vote on, I think, on each individual piece of evidence, which would have lengthened the trial somewhat.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, they decided that if it was presented in the House investigation that was televised and everyone knows about it, then it can be presented by kind of automatically in the Senate trial. So Adam Schiff and his colleagues used that to present a great deal of the evidence that was presented at the House investigation, including a lot of video testimony from Gordon Sondland and Fiona Hill, and also a lot of publicly available video of Trump saying particular things in public, and documents that were presented in the investigation, and they got a lot of evidence out that had been, we'd all have seen it if we paid attention at the time, but they've kind of put it again into context and said this is what this means and this is what's come out, and some senators, including Sheldon Whitehouse, said that they had, this was stuff they hadn't seen before, which kind of amazing, really.
Yes, I was quite surprised that they were kind of. It was almost, well, this is news to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really? Isn't it? What have you been doing for the last 3 years?
Yeah, it's kind of exactly your job to keep an eye on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We just do it for fun, and we knew about it. So
exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of scary. But others said, well, they haven't presented anything new. They haven't given us any new information, which of course is because they're stopping the Democrats from giving new information or getting new evidence or calling witnesses. So the Republicans made an interesting case for witnesses in a way by constantly saying, well, we haven't heard from witnesses who have direct knowledge of this stuff, have we? So obviously it didn't happen, rather than obviously we need to hear from those people.
Yeah. And there were lots of claims that everything was hearsay yet again.
Yeah.
Which we'd heard before about the same stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's a standard thing. The thing is, Trump's legal team, if you can call it that, they started out by lying pretty much straight away. I mean, I think one of the first things they said was Trump is a man of his word. So, I mean, if you're going to go with that as your opening, Trump complained that that his team basically started on Saturday afternoon, which is really, it's bad ratings TV time.
Right.
That's the dead zone for TV ratings.
Yeah.
Because that's what's important, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not what the arguments are made.
Who's tuning in? How many people we've got tuning in? Yeah.
But that was because of the rules that his party set up. And arguably, I mean, that's a plus for them if people don't see what they have to say, frankly.
Yeah.
And they only used, on that first day, they used 2 hours to kind of give an indication of what their case was going to be.
The game or something.
I mean, they just kind of said, we're not going to take all the time. We're not going to. But they don't have that much to say. That's the thing. They don't have kind of arguments on the merits. They're not. No. They're not saying. They're claiming that a lot of stuff that has been shown that definitely happened didn't happen. But they're not claiming that they can actually rebut really anything that has been said by the other side. So there's only so many times you can complain about the process, and
call into question the Democrats' motives.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they used 2 hours on the first day to kind of do a teaser for what they're going to be talking about. They used the whole of Monday, and they only used a couple of hours today, and that's it. And now tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday as well, is going to be an opportunity for asking questions and debate.
Right.
From where senators are going to get to talk, because it's been the teams, the legal teams on both sides so far who've the only ones who've done any talking. Senators are under strict rules, supposedly, to, be in their seat the whole time and not talk and not make any noise and stuff like that. Supposedly, at kind of pain of incarceration.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to have any teeth at all, because lots of, especially Republicans, but also some Democrats, have been seen out of their seats at various points. They're in the lobby, they're in the cloakroom, they're occasionally giving interviews on Fox News. While the trial is going on, they are reading books, doing puzzles, making paper aeroplanes. One Republican brought in fidget spinners for everyone. So
what? Yeah,
it's just they are kind of actively trying not to pay attention, basically.
Yeah.
So Trump's team again completely lying. Pat Cipollone said that the House investigation happened in secret and not even Mr. Schiff's Republican colleagues were allowed into the SCIF. That's a complete lie.
Yep.
There were plenty of Republicans in there. It was about half and half, to be honest.
That was the point, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
They did that, to make sure that it was balanced, that that neither party could accuse the other of it being behind closed doors and people were kept out of knowing what's going on. That's
Absolutely.
exactly why they did it that way.
Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, said that the president was denied the right to cross-examine witnesses, denied the right to access evidence, and denied the right to have counsel present at the hearings. None of that's true. That's all complete lies. They chose not to. They declined. They were offered the opportunity to come and be there and do, make their argument. They were invited to come and make the arguments that they needed to make, that they declined to take part. The weird thing that I don't understand, and I'm, is very much kind of confirmation bias and my liberal bias, is that there are people watching this who have seen the stuff that Schiff has said and the video clips that he's played and the documents that he's produced, who still say, "Oh, it's all just a hoax." But they're watching and paying attention. Not there's loads of people who aren't watching and paying attention. Loads of people on Twitter are saying, this is bullshit. I'm not paying attention to this bit. I'll start watching when the president's team starts talking.
Yeah.
But there are actually people who are watching and still going, bloody Democrats lying about everything. It's weird. And it makes me wonder. It makes me kind of question my response to the Republicans, looking at them and going, "Well, yeah, they are lying about this stuff." It makes me think, am I doing the same thing?
Is that the same thing, or is it that the conviction? But the thing is, that we know the Republicans are lying because we can point to the evidence. Which shows that what the truth actually is, and that they are saying something that's contrary to those facts.
Yeah.
So what must be going through the people who think that when people present true factual evidence, when they think they are lying, what is it that is getting in the way? Nothing but cognitive bias, nothing but dismissing their arguments in a fallacious way by saying, well, they would say that, wouldn't they, because they're Democrats.
Yeah.
That's the... But, how...
It is difficult to kind of distance yourself enough to make sure that you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And, of course, while the president's team were making their case, if you want to call it that, the news came out in the New York Times that John Bolton's book has been distributed, or an unpublished draft of John Bolton's book has been distributed to the White House at the end of last year. So a lot of the people who have been saying there are no witnesses who claim that POTUS actually linked aid to Ukraine with the investigation, they knew it. They knew that was a lie, because that allegation is in the book. That Trump specifically said to Bolton that he was linking the aid to the investigations.
Yep.
So, and I think just today they kind of studiously ignored it completely. Ken Starr, who I think was yesterday was the only person who actually mentioned Bolton. He did this weird section about how awful it is that people are impeaching people.
Yeah. Why can't we just all get along?
There's just so much impeachment happening these days.
Which you can't move for it.
I mean, it's like American Idol complaining there's too many music talent shows.
Yeah.
It's what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Why won't everyone just stop impeaching people?
Yeah.
But yeah, he mentioned Bolton at the end of his bit, and no one else did. But Sekulow mentioned him today, and well, kind of in passing, he said that, you know, when we are in the business of looking at evidence, not unsourced manuscripts, which it's absolutely not unsourced. It's definitely written by John Bolton.
Yeah,
that's the source.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just saying, you know, we absolutely don't want to consider this piece of damning evidence that shows that everything we've been saying is not true.
Yeah. Well, of course, weirdly, and that's not us. That may well be an ad hominem circumstantial, but it's nonetheless true.
Yeah.
But also didn't a kind of recording of Lev Parnas come out as well?
Yeah, we'll be talking about it in the headlines section. But that also has had an impact. And essentially, you know, the longer this goes on for, which is one of the reasons that arguably that the Republicans may want to keep it short as possible, is that the longer it goes on, more and more evidence keeps coming out. So it is kind of dangerous for them, and there has been a lot of chatter that that Bolton's book, combined with his pre-existing statement that he is happy to testify in the Senate trial, might push more Republican senators to actually vote for witnesses. And there's some people are saying who know something about it that the Republican team, the legal team, are now looking at kind of exactly how they're going to deal with witnesses rather than whether they're going to have to.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because, as I said last time, it's when these things keep coming out, and this Bolton one is a particular firestorm, it becomes harder. Even the people who just want to ignore everything, it becomes harder for them to say, no, even in the face of this publicly available information, we don't want to hear evidence. We don't want to talk to witnesses.
Yeah.
So
because there must be a thought that, okay, well, if we the only way that Trump can defend, or Trump's team can defend their position, is by having a witness go on the stand and say something to the contrary of all this stuff coming in, whether it's evidence by that's been submitted or evidence that's just coming up into the public domain at the same time. The only way that they can refute it, other than just saying, well, they would say that, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
Is to have a witness.
The danger, of course, is that if you want to refute Bolton's claim that Trump told him about the aid, the person you need to have on the witness stand is Trump.
Yeah.
And no sensible defense attorney is going to call Trump to the stand because he's instantly going to perjure himself. And the problem is the witnesses that the Democrats want to call, like Mulvaney and Pompeo and Michael Duffy and those people who were involved in the withholding of the aid. That it is a bit of a crapshoot whether they are prepared to go to jail for Trump. Maybe some of them are, but arguably there is a danger, if you look at it from the Republican side, that they actually might tell the truth under oath, which would be bad. So
that's how twisted and perverted that is it that we're actually using that phrase. It's a danger that they might tell the truth.
So their strategy, it seems like, is going to be if they have to have witnesses, then they're going to call as many bullshit distraction witnesses like Hunter Biden and people like that as they can to just make it more of a clown show instead of something that people can pay attention to and learn from. So because if the Democrats get their way and actually get some witnesses, then it's still, realistically, he's still not going to be removed. The Republicans are still going to vote to acquit, but they're going to look a lot worse doing it.
Yeah, because they've got to do it in that they're going to have to reveal their true motives, which are going to be about defending the position in constituencies where Trump is not popular, defending their position in constituencies where Trump is popular, defending their position so they don't want to be fired. It's all about how are they going to protect their own
And there
interests.
are senators who are in areas where, like North Carolina and Colorado and places like that, where they have Republican senators, but Trump is not popular. And they are in danger, arguably, of losing their seats. And if enough of them lose their seats, then the Democrats get the Senate as well as the House in the next election. So
that's the problem with all these impeachments. The place is thick with them. You can't people have lose the power of concentration, and it just it is appalling that it's nobody's kind of voting with their conscience. It far be it from me to say that Nixon had a conscience, but it kind of, there was a moment when he just went, do you know what? I'll just, the game's up.
That actually reminds me of something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the fire swamp, is that this time round, I've included Trump as one of the people you can pick. Because it's possible in the next 5 months he may be fired or resign. So that would give you some points if you pick Trump. And
that ought to be a million extra points because he's like the Joker in the pack. No, not the Joker, the King. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
Trump must have said he didn't know Lev Parnas again, because Parnas' lawyer released a video last week that featured Trump having dinner with Parnas, Igor Fruman and several other donors to a Trump-supporting super PAC. During the dinner, Parnas told Trump that US Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch had been telling people that Trump was likely to be impeached, at which Trump said, "Get rid of her. Get her out tomorrow. I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out, okay? Do it." Various news organisations have charitably described this as Trump threatening to fire Yovanovitch, while others have pointed out that "take her out" can be interpreted in multiple ways, especially when talking to shady Eastern European businessmen. Fortunately for Ambassador Yovanovitch, the Trump administration is a well-oiled machine, and within a year, just over a year, someone fired her. There's the other interesting thing about that actually is that the video was shot it was a phone turned up on a table, so it's mostly the ceiling, but it was shot by Igor Fruman, and he hasn't as yet been, at least as in public, cooperating. So I don't know, nobody seems to know at the moment whether he gave the video to Parnas and Parnas has leaked it to the Democrats, or whether Fruman possibly is cooperating. We don't know that yet.
Or if he's still alive. Yeah.
Also, it really, really reminds me of a brilliant sketch by David Mitchell and Robert Webb on, I think, the Mitchell and Webb look, where they are a criminal organisation, and the David Mitchell, the kind of boss of the organisation, is saying, "I want you to take care of him." And they're saying, "Okay, can you just say what you want? Because we've been through this. We've made mistakes in the past. Just if you want, do you want us to kill him?"
Yeah. Or do you want us to tuck him, give him a nice blanket and a cushion?
Yes.
Something
it would
warm
be a
to
shame
drink.
if an accident befell him.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's true. It would be. Can you just be really sensitive? Yeah. Okay, so we know that Trump watches a lot of televised fiction, but we didn't know he was a big fan of the Bruce Stern film Silent Running, or that his viewing taste was that modern. It's a late one, 1972.
Brilliant film.
The one where Bruce is protecting Earth's last forests in a spacecraft. I would have thought it was a bit eco for Trump, but why else would the new Space Force have woodland camouflage uniforms? Apparently, it's because, A, they're saving money by using old uniforms. Okay, so how much of a percentage of the $40 million were they going to cost? But because they recycled the Starfleet logo, I guess it's more recycling. And B, because that's what the guys they'll work with on Earth will be wearing. Surely part of the point of being in Space Force is that you don't look like a hastily assembled bunch of amateur volunteers recruited to save the Earth, like in every sci-fi movie ever. Oh, no, wait. In space, no one can hear you bark.
The National Archives in Washington, D.C. found a unique way of commemorating 100 years of women's suffrage this month when they censored women's voices by removing messages critical of Trump from an image of the 2017 Women's March, which took place the day after the inauguration. The image was being used by the National Archives to promote their centenary celebration of the 19th Amendment, and they claimed that Trump's name was blurred out of the protest signs, quote, so as not to engage in current political controversy. Fortunately, after the ACLU pointed out the archive's job is to document history, they apologised and have now replaced it with the original unaltered image. Meanwhile, we quietly add another item to the list of stuff that happens under dictators that's now happening in the US.
There you go. Yeah, that's, yeah. Not satisfied with just bragging, Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos appeared to brag about doing the thing he's being impeached for at the very moment he's in Davos.
When we released that conversation, all hell broke out with the Democrats because they say, wait a minute, this is much different than Shifty Schiff told us. So we're doing very well. I got to watch enough. I thought our team did a very good job. But honestly, we have all the material. They don't have the material.
So did you hear that too? There it is. I got it. You don't. You think you can do me for having done this, but you can't prove it because I got all the proof you need, like you asked for when you subpoenaed all the documents. Well, yeah, that's the obstruction you said you hadn't done, which is what you're being impeached for. Does nobody notice this stuff any longer? Or just too tired to notice? Or do notice but don't care? Please put a tick in the appropriate box. And that box, of course, is the one next to Bernie Sanders' name.
Russian asset Tulsi Gabbard is suing Hillary Clinton for $50 million for calling her a Russian asset. Wait, I better start this one again. Russian asset and lover of frivolous lawsuits and white pantsuits, Tulsi Gabbard, is suing Hillary Clinton. There, that's better. Gabbard responded to the comment made by Hillary on a podcast last year by tweeting, "You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long," and then suing her for saying mean things. She also claimed, in a very timely circumstantial ad hominem, that Hillary made the claim because she's, quote, afraid of the threat I pose. Thing is, people are allowed to have and express opinions about public figures, and you can be a Russian asset simply by being potentially helpful to Russia, even unwittingly, by, say, splitting the Democrat vote by standing as a third-party candidate. It doesn't mean you're being accused of actually doing anything. If she'd said Tulsi was a Russian agent, that's a whole other matter. But neither she nor we would ever suggest anything like that. Although I think I may have said it about Trump last episode. Never mind, he never sues anyone, does he?
No.
No.
Welcome to the future dystopia we all knew was going to happen when mop-top, lovable, scheming Machiavellian Boris got into office. He acquiesces to Trump's every demand. Trump wants Europe to find Iran just as guilty of breaking the terms of the not making nuclear weapons agreement, which they haven't. Europe knows they haven't, but Trump wants to sanction Iran anyway because Obama negotiated the agreement. To make Europe reconsider the wisdom of their decision, Trump threatened to slap 25% tariffs on European cars into the US. And weirdly, they all found Iran was in breach of the agreement. Boris, though, keen not to be seen to be acquiescing, fawning and licking Trump's arse just yet, tries in an interview to appear to see the reason for the Americans not liking the deal. He says correctly that it's because the agreement expires and it was an Obama deal. And in standing firm in the face of what Iran calls the high school bully, Boris then goes on to say, if we are getting rid of the deal, then let's replace it with a new deal, the Trump deal. No, Boris, let's not do that. The New Deal is purely a vindictive, narcissistic, ego-driven act of a man bereft of anything but spite, hatred and envy. Oh yeah, of course, no wonder you like him. It's like Eton all over again, you spineless toff.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo did an interview on NPR with Mary Louise Kelly last week and was shocked when she asked him questions about Ukraine, despite the fact she'd told his staff she would be asking about Ukraine. After the interview, Kelly was ushered into Pompeo's private living room where he shouted and swore at her and asked, "Do you think Americans care about Ukraine?" Then he asked her if she could even point to Ukraine on a map. Kelly, who has a master's in European Studies from Cambridge, said she could. So, according to her report, quote, he called out for his aides to bring him a map of the world with no writing, no countries marked. I pointed to Ukraine. He put the map away and said, "People will hear about this." Because doubling down is rewarded in the Trump White House, Pompeo released a statement accusing Kelly of lying about the terms of the interview and claiming the post-interview rant was off the record. He ended with a suggestion that she failed his test, saying, "It's worth noting that Bangladesh is not Ukraine," which kind of raises the question, does Mike Pompeo think Ukraine is Bangladesh? I wish I was more confident that he doesn't.
Exactly. Meanwhile, this side of the pond, Boris and Brexit. Great news! Whilst no money can be found to help reunite refugee children with their parents in Boris's hostile environment, Britain, hundreds of thousands of pounds have been spent to mint new 50p coins, celebrating, but not in a triumphalist way, you understand, we're all about healing division in our one nation, the withdrawal from the European Union on January the 31st. The 63% of the UK population who didn't vote for Brexit have taken to social media to suggest that whenever you find one of these 50p's in your change, you donate every single one of them to refugee charities. If you think a small thing can't make a big impact, try dropping a coin from the Empire State Building.
I would just point out, because I'm not the kind of person who can let something like this go, it is a myth that dropping a coin from the Empire State Building would actually injure someone.
Yeah, it was going to be, if you think a small thing can't make a big impact, try sleeping with a mosquito. But then there's no... It does make a big impact because it's running at terminal velocity. It might not kill you, but it'll make an impact.
It could hit someone.
If it's a 50p coin, they're sharp. They're not round. They've got edges.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this episode. You can find the show notes at fallacioustrump.com. And if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know. And if you've had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can support the show on our Patreon page at patreon.com/ftrump, just like our newest patron, BCP Doc. Thanks very much, guys.
You can connect with us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/FallaciousTrump,
where you can also sign up for the next episode of Fire Swamp and win prizes. All music is by The Outburst and was used with permission. So until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye.
Facebook.com/groups/FallaciousTrump, where you can also sign up for the Fire Swamp this term.
Do that this term.
I don't know. I must stop trying to ad-lib. Can't do it in the scripted bits. I'm all right just talking off the top of my head and the rest of it, but as soon as I try and add something to the bits I've already written down, I'm like, no, that just goes complete nonsense.